lights are falling. All right, let's tear an engine down. What is up, you guys, and welcome back to the channel. I am so excited to make this video because I want to see what the hell is wrong with this engine. The only reason I pulled the engine out of this car is because it's pushing coolant into the overflow like crazy. I can tell there is exhaust gas getting into the coolant passages of this engine. So I'm 99.9% sure the head gasket is screwed. And I'm pretty sure it's the one on the passenger side head. So in today's video, we are gonna tear the heads off this thing, take all the timing components off, pretty much strip it right down to a short block. We got a whole new engine gasket set coming in. We got to resurface the heads, slap some new head gaskets in, and she should be mint. So the first thing I want to do tearing down this engine is get the intake manifold off and get everything on the top of the engine taken off. And when you take this intake manifold off, pretty much everything comes off with it. Like the turbo inlet, all of the fuel lines, the whole wiring harness, pretty much everything minus the coolant lines and the turbo. But the turbo we're going to take off once we flip the engine over, and we can take the exhaust manifold off, the up pipe and the turbo off all at the same time. So let's start with getting the intake manifold off. I'm not really gonna do how-to in this video. I'm just gonna kind of buzz through this because I need to get these heads to the machine shop before the end of the day, and I got a late start to the day. It's already 1 o'clock, so I'm hoping to have this engine torn down in the next hour. Then we can get the heads to the machine shop before the weekend so that they can have them done by maybe Tuesday next week. Then our gasket set should come in and we can get this entire engine back together and back in the car next week. So let's start ripping this thing apart. What in the ass? Whoa, whoa, whoa. You guys see this? The belt guide above the crank pulley is literally missing a bolt, and it has just been eating into the belt for the last, I don't know how long. This timing belt kit is definitely brand new, but this belt is collapsed. So we got the intake manifold off and everything's off up top. Then I take the timing covers off, which are broken, by the way. But I'm looking at the belt and I see like literally a gouge in the belt. And you can see all over the place, this is not oil. There's a little bit of oil, but that's all belt material that's gotten rubbed off the belt and it's just spreading all over the place. Then I look at the guide above the crank gear and oh my gosh, there's literally only one bolt in it. This has been eating into the belt and you can see the wear marks on the belt where it was rubbing on it. Wow, we are lucky that we tore this apart because that could have been bad. This is why buying used Subarus that have been worked on by somebody who doesn't know what they're doing is sketchy. Whenever someone tells me they've done the timing belt on the Subaru themselves and they did not take it to a shop and have it professionally done, this is the kind of stuff that happens. So she needs a new timing belt, which I kind of figured was gonna happen anyways, but everything else is brand spanking new. So if you guys saw the video where we pulled the engine out of this thing, which if you did not, I will put a link up top to that. But in that video, I looked at the bottom of the engine and I said, that's a little sus. This water pump looks brand new. And if you look real close at the water pump, you see how shiny all the metal is in there? That water pump is brand new. Also, if you look at this tensioner and all of the idler pulleys, you could tell that they are brand spanking new. This one even just got a little bit of rust on it. But these are all brand new. So I don't think we need to get any timing components for this thing other than the belt. We just need to give this a good wash, clean everything up. This looks like either a Gates or an OEM replacement kit because it does say Japan on the water pump. So if it's from Japan, that means it's probably good parts. So we're gonna leave those on, but I'm definitely gonna order just a new timing belt. Another thing that I showed in the video where I tore the engine out of this thing and I was looking underneath, you could literally see this idler pulley in under the engine. And now that I'm looking at it, I can see that this rear timing cover is just busted. There's nothing broken off the engine block or anything like that. So that's another good sign. So we are gonna get all of the timing components taken off of this thing now. All we need to do is crank this engine to half stroke because on Subarus you don't do top dead center, you do it where the pistons are halfway up the cylinder on each side, which is lining this mark right here up on the crank pulley to the mark on your oil pump, which sits up top there. Then when that lines up, you're gonna crank it to the point where all your marks line up on the cam gears too, and I'll show you guys that once I get her all lined up. All right, well, the timing is all good, just as I thought, because the engine was running fine, other than this guide being completely loose with no bolt in it. So basically what I did here was cranked the crank pulley until this mark lines up with the mark up top there on your oil pump. Then once you get that lined up, you're gonna look at your cam pulleys at the same time, or cam gears, whatever you wanna call them. Each cam gear should be lined up to each other. So both cam gears should have 2 lines on them. They should both line up in the middle. Then you'll have one independent line on the top of the cam gear, which lines up with a notch right on the top of your timing cover there. Then on the bottom cam gear, there's gonna be a line on the side, which also lines up with another notch in the timing cover right there. And then on the other side of the engine, it's gonna be the exact same thing. So what I like to do to take timing belts off is I get a drill bit that is the perfect size to fit into the little hole on the tensioner right here. And once you get that drill bit in there, all you're gonna do is get a 14 mil and a ratchet. You're gonna put it on your tensioner pulley, and you're just gonna push down nice and slow until the tension comes off the tensioner, and then you should be able to slide your drill bit into place to lock the tensioner to lose the tension on the belt. Once you get your drill bit in your tensioner and your tensioner's all the way up, you can just zip this bottom idler pulley out. Just a 14 mil. Now we're gonna take all of our belt guides off, some of which are not tight already, and then we should be able to just pull the belt right off. Okay, we got everything off of the top of the engine pretty much that we need to pull the heads off, except for a couple small things which we will disconnect when we get the turbo off. And then we're gonna go ahead and flip the engine over, and we will take the exhaust manifold off. Now you guys would have seen in that time lapse what I did to get the cam gears off. The 2 cam gears on the left side of the engine, so the driver's side of the engine, were super easy. I just put an impact and a 10 mil Allen key, they came off no problem. But the ones on the passenger side, holy shit were those hard to get off. Wasn't as bad as the STI was. And I'll insert a little clip of when I snapped the bolt off of the cam gear on my STI. What the? I was able to get these ones off, but I did have to use the old timing belt and wrap it around a couple of the idler pulleys and then vice grip it down, and I was able to use a breaker bar to break the bolts off, but it wasn't easy. Another thing that sucks about this engine is whoever did this timing belt kit somewhat cross-threaded the bolts in for these 2 lower idler pulleys, so literally when I pulled them out, the threads came with it pretty much. So I don't have an M10 by 125 tap here. I do at the Ronin Performance shop. So when I head into town to drop off these heads, I'm gonna grab my tap so that I can get that cleaned up and we're not cross-threading the bolts in every time. So since we don't got much time left, I'm gonna rip that turbo off, and then we can flip the engine over, get the exhaust manifold pulled off. Then we can start pulling the valve covers off, get the cam caps off, get the cams pulled out, and then we can pull all of our head bolts out, get the heads off, and then we can take them to the machine shop. And when we pull apart that side, we get to see how bad the damage is on this head gasket, because you can see all the old crusty coolant built up on this side right by the head gasket. So let's get back into it. Well, all of the gasket material on the lower end of the head gasket is definitely blown out, but the metal portion of the head gasket isn't blown out. I actually don't see where this is like insanely bad. I guess let's pull apart the other side and see what the other head gasket looks like. Huh. They're both kind of the same. It's a little bit of oil, looks like it was going into the coolant passages there, but I'm very confused right now. Maybe all that gasket material missing is enough to let the oil into the coolant or exhaust gases or whatever. We're replacing them anyways, so at least we got the heads off now. One thing I do want to mention about the heads when you take it apart is do not lose track of which cam cap went where. The cams you won't mix up because intake and exhaust are different, but I always set them in the orientation that I took them out. One thing that you will never miss with the cams is on the cam, if you guys can see there, it actually does say left intake, L-IN. So that
that would mean that this is the cam out of my left head and it is my intake cam. So we're gonna get that set back on the head. Then your caps are only marked in the forward direction. So you do have to remember where they came off of. That's why I stack mine in a certain spot so that I know exactly how they came out. And I can just take them, lift them back on exactly how they came out. Now the same with these caps. They both go back on the same spot.
So now we got the engine pretty much completely torn down to a short block. We got the good old open deck EJ205 there. We got all our intake manifold and all the timing components there, and the turbo. And we got our heads sitting on a nice clean bench. So now what I'm gonna do is call the machine shop. I don't know if they want the heads dropped off with the cams and everything in it for resurfacing. I'm assuming for resurfacing it doesn't matter. They probably want them completely stripped. And now at this point we are pretty much just gonna be waiting for the heads to get finished up at the machine shop, and we are waiting for Subi Supply Co to send us our engine gasket set for this thing, which comes with head gaskets, cam seals, crank seals, every single crush washer for every oil galley. It comes with everything. So if you guys want to order anything off Subi Supply Co, I will give you guys a 5% discount code here. Use Daniel5 for 5% off your order. It is only 5%. But it's better than nothing. I just got off phone with the head shop and they actually did say that they want the cams and everything like that stripped out of the heads, including the buckets. So here's another tip for you guys. Your buckets on Subaru heads are basically the pieces underneath the cam lobe right there, that little silver piece, and that is what sets your valve lash on Subaru engines. So your valve lash is the space between the cam lobe and the bucket. And basically what setting your valve lash does is you want it in between the maximum and minimum spec, because if you don't and you have too much valve lash, it can cause a pretty gnarly ticking noise in your head as that cam lobe is rotating and it's whacking that bucket if there's too much clearance. Or if there's not enough clearance, it could be too tight and it could be prematurely opening that valve. So what I'm getting at here is each valve bucket is specific to each valve and cam lobe. So when you're pulling these apart, you want to make sure that you're not mixing those up. This engine was running quiet as a mouse before I pulled it apart. So I know that my valve lash is probably within spec. So I'm not going to measure any of them, but if you guys need to measure your valve lash, I do have a video completely breaking that down and how to get your measurements, how to subtract the numbers, everything like that. So I will put a link up top to that. I'm gonna get everything pulled off of the top of these heads, get all the buckets pulled out, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set the buckets right next to the proper lobe of each cam on this table. So that way I don't need to number them or anything like that. I just know when that cam goes back in, those buckets all need to match up with each individual cam lobe. And making YouTube videos makes it a little bit easier because I can look back on my camera footage. This is why I love making YouTube videos, and I get to hang out with you guys. Now you guys can see that I got each bucket sitting next to each cam lobe. They're all set so that nothing should get messed up. I got the heads loaded up in a box here. Now we gotta go to the head shop and we gotta go pick up the STI because she's done. If you guys didn't catch my last video, I'll put a link up top to that. We were getting some rust fix on the STI. We had to cut out a whole bunch of rust out of the rear quarters and weld some new sheet metal in. So we're gonna see how good it looks because I suck at body work, but the shop that I take it to get body work done, all the paint work's done by them. They do unreal work. So I'm excited to see what this looks like. Cold start for the boys. Man, I can't wait till this thing has turbo in it. All right, we made it to the head shop. Heads are ready to go in the box. So I'm gonna drop these off and then we're gonna go pick up the STI, which will be next video. And it is way too windy out here, so that's where I'm gonna end this video. Hopefully it gave you guys some tips pulling apart the engines on your Subarus, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Peace out, thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one.